Ottawa, Canada's capital, it's the Computer Podcast. Hello, I'm your host, Norman Jack. With me, of course, my co-host, George Valenzuela. George, how have you been keeping?
I'm doing great, Norm. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you very much. We also have our semi-regular special guest, Paul Middleveen from the Trailing Edge, tte.ca here in Ottawa. Paul, I trust you're keeping well as well. You're opening back up. You've opened back up, COVID-19 protocols in place. It must feel kind of good to get back into the shop, at least for a while.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to be allowing customers to come in and chat with us freely. It was quite the undertaking to have everybody be doing it over the phone and online, but we managed through it. And yeah, definitely customers are out in the neighborhood. They're bringing in their computers and very happy to have somebody to get them service by. So we're happy to be there for them.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Lots of things going on in the world of computers and the internet and cell phones and tablets and such. Google has apparently begun auto-deleting new users' search data and location history on a rolling 18-month basis. That was introduced last week. It's the latest attempt by the firm to boost public trust after heavy fines were levied against both Google and Facebook for privacy violations in recent years, especially in Europe. It's an interesting concept that it's for new users, and I'm trying to figure out why new users and why not the rest of us?
This is like a brand new setting. Okay, so the setting before was, do you want to delete stuff or do you want to keep stuff? And the default, I believe, is just keeping stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can't go in and retroactively change a setting, because I think that would introduce other issues where if they could change this setting, what else can they change on us, right? Can they, allow our faces to be shown about that kind of stuff? So they can't go back and change someone's setting who's already accepted something.
Okay.
What they're saying now is the default new policy for new accounts is every 18 months, at 18 months, your data will get clipped, and you'll only be, carrying the last 18 months of data.
Okay.
For anybody who's got an existing account, you can go back into your Google dashboard, I think it's called security dashboard, and look for those settings. And there's tons of posts on there, out there that tell you how to do that, where to find it. But if you look for, search history in your Google account, you'll find it. And you can turn that setting on as well. In fact, you can go as delete it up to now. You can set it for deleting up to 3 months at a time. So, you can only carry 3 months or carry up to 18 months or carry everything.
Yeah.
So it allows you the freedom now. They're just saying that for all new accounts starting as of, I think, July 3rd, I believe is the start date. I can't remember. That is when that will be enforced as the default setting.
Yeah, and I guess it's because, there are so many conditions and so many rules and so many things you have to read when you install these types of systems these days that it's not very hard for somebody to miss the fact that they can change that setting. And I guess that's what Google and Facebook have been hammered over, especially in Europe. So they've figured the only way now is to automatically get people going for an 18-month delete. They've still got that data. They'll still have it for 18 months. And, let's face it, if they've got 18 months worth of your preferences for restaurants, for example, I can assume that they'll still be pretty accurate in being able to sell the information to companies like restaurants who want to advertise right in your face.
The data is still going to be valuable. Absolutely. Yeah. And we know what kind of trouble Facebook got in by going in and changing user security settings without telling the user. So I think Google's just avoiding that whole, that pit of doom. They don't want to get caught in that. So
yeah, exactly.
Good on them.
Well, one of the things that, of course, is going on in the next day or two, Canada Day. We've got big celebrations coming up here in Canada, July the 1st for our birthday, our country's birthday. First formed with the British North America Act passage back on July the 1st, 1867. Of course, it's going to be a lot different this year. Communities across the country are having to put their local celebrations either on hold or put them online. And the national celebration here in Ottawa will be a virtual one as well. Traditionally, there's a big stage that's set up on Parliament Hill, and you get tens of thousands of people crowding the green grass in front of the stage to watch, and millions more watching, of course, on television. But everything's going to be joined up virtually this year. They've got a celebration kit that's available that you can download that has a lot of interactive and educational activities for the whole family. They're going to be putting out some interesting Let's Do It Together style videos. They're out now, so that'll give you an idea as to what Canadian dishes there are, Canadian sports you can become active in, hidden treasures of Canada digitally, celebrations that we've had in the past for Canada. All of those are going to be available as well. And then, of course, on the big day, the Canada Day celebrations on the Hill are going to be televised as they usually are, but they're also going to be made available on the Canadian Heritage website, their Facebook page, their YouTube account, so you can watch it. Starts at 1 o'clock Eastern time in the afternoon, and you can either watch it locally at 1 o'clock if you're in Canada, 2 o'clock in Atlantic Canada, because of course they'll be they're ahead of us in the time zone areas, or you can watch it live as it comes up on the various Facebook pages and YouTube channels that Canadian Heritage has. And we'll post some links in the blog so that you can go directly to them if you want to try out some of the Canada Day activities or watch the Canada Day festivities across the country. It's an interesting technical thing. It'll be interesting to see how it goes together. I've been on Canada Day on the Hill for many, many years covering the event, and it's a very complex thing to set up for television. Now, of course, you don't have, when you're setting up for the web, you don't have to worry about setting all that up. You've got the experts who've done it for years and years and years. The interesting part, I think, Paul and George, will be how they manage to bring all of that together through virtual connections with various singers and performers in different spots across the country. They managed to do it with Parliament okay. They're holding parliamentary sessions with MPs across the country. It'll be interesting to see how well they do when they bring all of the entertainers together into a virtual performance. It'll also be interesting to see how local communities, cities, smaller cities, towns, villages, how their little online celebrations will work as well. This could be a big benefit for them because it'll keep the local people local.
I like the way Canada and many countries around the world have embraced the it's like a sense of community, right? We're being separate, but we're being together, virtually. We're taking advantage of the technology. I think it's great that we're embracing this kind of stuff. And the more we practice this, the more we do this, the easier it might be the next time we have to do it. The easier it might be if we, for whatever reason, something we just can't do physically, we can do virtually. We've already gotten, worked through some of the kinks, and I like that the fact that we're trying this. It's not a bad thing. A lot of people don't like this as change. It's like, why are we doing it? It gives me more of a sense of community almost, that we're doing it and I'm still alone. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird dichotomy for me that way.
Okay, on to the topic of the day. Being that it's the last show of the month, it's our Tech Talk show where we take your questions on problems or issues that you've been having and try and solve them here. You can email us your questions at any time. If it's a really urgent one, we'll try and get it on the podcast as soon as possible. Just send it off to thecomputerpodcast@gmail.com and it'll drop into our inbox. Here's one that I thought was kind of interesting, and that this actually hits kind of close to home because I haven't been inside my laptop in a long time, and I guess I should to go in and clean things out a bit. But as one of our listeners says, can I upgrade my current laptop with a new processor? I mean, you can do that on a desktop, obviously, but can you do them on laptops now?
It really depends on the laptop and the board they used. Many of them do have sockets that can release the CPU, and others are soldered directly to the board. So honestly, it would be more of a check with your manufacturer or bring it into a shop like ours. We can take a look at it, do some research on that model, and see if we could upgrade the CPU. The other issue with upgrading your processor, you probably have owned it for anywhere from, say, 2 to 4 years, and now you're starting to think about upgrading it. It's the availability of that older CPU as well. Sometimes it's cost effective, other times not so much. So I guess I'm answering the question with more questions.
Yeah, exactly.
I tend to go on the no, and
Yeah,
one main reason is that laptops are designed and engineered to everything kind of fits perfectly, and they've taken everything into consideration for spacing and heat distribution and getting heat off the system and blow. So if you go in and you change a processor, you might be introducing more heat in an area that didn't previously. It wasn't designed to handle that much heat, so it could
Right.
have adverse effects in the long run. It could melt your keyboard. Who knows, right? So I would probably err on the side of caution and say if you're trying to get a new processor in your laptop, you might even end up paying more than it would cost just to update your laptop.
exactly.
Yeah.
So to me, it's always a non-starter when it comes to laptops. It's just they're closed systems. Maybe I can add a hard drive, or maybe I can swap out a hard drive or a CD, one of those detachable CDs for an extra hard drive. But other than that, if it isn't modular, it's just treated as a black box. You need it upgraded, then either get a new laptop or just live with it.
Yeah.
In most cases.
All right, here's another one. I use a VPN, a virtual private network, provided by my workplace when I need to access my office and all of its software. But will this VPN keep me safe if I browse to other sites? Well, you're big into VPNs, George. Is a VPN no matter what you use it for?
So I actually tested this, and the VPN provided by my work allows me to connect to internal. So we have an internal intranet, obviously, right? Intranet.
Right.
It allows me to access that intranet, but everything that I access outside of that intranet, so from my laptop as the source
Mm-hmm.
into my systems at work, I am in a U.S. network when I'm there. So if I'm
Okay.
on a system that's inside my office, so if I VPN from my laptop into my office and I open up a system in there and I connect from that system somewhere on the internet, I'm on the VPN network. But if I'm on my laptop sitting at home and I'm connected into my VPN, but then I open up a browser and I go to google.com and I check my IP address, it's my local provided internet provider provided IP address.
Oh.
So it's not protecting me when I go to other sites. I'm not VPNing my laptop. I'm creating a tunnel into my workplace.
Ah, okay.
And within that tunnel, it's all encrypted. And when I'm in my workplace, I'm as if I was in my office when I'm on my workplace systems.
Right.
As soon as I cut that VPN off, my laptop doesn't die, it stays up. All of the systems that were connected into my internal system go dark. I can't see anything. But all of my regular connections still stay up, which tells you that it's not actually VPNing your entire. So it's not a proxy for your whole system. It is just a tunnel to get into your work office or your
that's
work
interesting.
systems, right? So if you want true VPN protection, you would have to install it at the level of your laptop, not just to get into your work system. So it's a separate system. Yeah, it's a separate VPN. Yeah.
Now, Paul, you've had a couple of interesting questions that were sent to you as well the last little while.
Yeah, I mean, now the customers are coming back with more and more computers. Some of the usual ones are, my system's slow, or I'm not sure why, it's freezing, it's hanging, but then it starts going again. The issue with this type of question is, again, it's very open-ended. There's many reasons why it could or may be having issues. Some of the recent ones are from some Windows updates. And again, if your Windows system is doing updates in the background, a lot of the time we're unaware that it's downloading or even installing some of those feature updates. So that could definitely be causing a big slowdown. You may want to check and make sure your system is up to date so that isn't happening for you. And always back up if you're going to do that. Again, you would want to check and see if you're at the latest version. I think 2004, I know going back in time, but 2004 is the latest large release update for Windows 10. So a lot of you users out there, if you have the time and you're not working on your computer at home currently, maybe you can get a chance to make sure your system's all up to date. The other thing is that we've found, and I can't underline this enough, there's so many people that tend to do this. We're all, we're talking about security and our data and our information, and we're worried about it. We don't want people to be taking it. But in many cases, people will load on tools that they're unaware of or haven't done a lot of research on, where they put on multiple antiviruses. And in many cases, this can cause your system to completely hang up or freeze. It's like having two attack dogs and both are trying to stop each other. So make sure you only have one good and reliable antivirus on your machine. And of course, those system tune-up, free tune-up packages and driver updaters. I'm sure there's a couple of good ones out there. I don't have their names off the top of my head, but a lot of those are, again, free for a reason. They have hooks in there to again, get your data in many cases, but also they install incorrect drivers in many occasions. So I would just stick to doing your Windows updates and your branded computer, HP, Dell, Lenovo, whoever it may be. Get your drivers straight from the source. Don't use an alternative third-party tool unless it's recommended by the manufacturer, or do your research, do your diligence.
Okay.
And then again, disk usage. Many people still, a lot of us out there have mechanical drives, and this can be an issue for speed as well. Your newer OSs are definitely getting more robust and require faster access times to your hard drives, and solid states really do that well. They're very reliable, and I would recommend to anybody, if they have a mechanical, that they could upgrade to an SSD and try and help get rid of some of those slowness issues they may be having.
A question that we received as well, George. Is there an easy way for me to limit or block my kids from using Wi-Fi? Is there a way of setting a time limit? Can it be done easily?
So actually, that really is dependent on many factors, right? The number one factor is who's your provider, right? The one thing that I wouldn't recommend anymore, I would have recommended in the past, is getting a third-party program that kind of monitors that sniffs the packets and or monitors somehow. Maybe if it's on a phone, you want to put an app on a kid who's a little bit younger and you want to monitor their product, that's different. But for general internet usage, you can go as fancy as building a system from scratch that you put between your incoming internet and the rest of your network. Something called pfSense, for example, that will monitor the packets, will segregate. You can create VPNs. It's full featured. We could do a whole show just on pfSense.
Yeah.
And a lot of people at work use that, actually, and because now they're at home, they've been sending all sorts of weird messages about it. But whatever, that's a sidebar. So you could do that, or what you can do is a lot of providers will have apps that you can download on phones to monitor systems, to say, okay, at 11 p.m. every night, I'm just going to shut off the internet for 5 hours. So everybody's internet is off. Be careful of that, because if your kids are using tablets and or phones that have data, they'll switch over to data, and if they're watching videos, then your data is going to go through the roof. So just talk to the most important thing is to talk to your kids. Don't just impose these limits without letting people know that these are the limits, right? So have a discussion around it, and then if that doesn't work, then you can start using some more enforcements on, talk to your provider, talk to your Bell or your Rogers or your TELUS, whoever your provider is, and ask them if there's any tools that they have that you can leverage to help, curtail some online usage, in certain hours, or set a time limit, or maybe even lower bandwidth, make it so slow that it's unusable at a certain point.
Yeah.
So kids are encouraged just to go to sleep or to go outside or something. So yeah, there's all sorts of things that you can do.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show this week. My thanks to Paul Middleveen from The Trailing Edge, tte.ca. Don't forget, you can tune into our podcasts on our YouTube channel. You can check that out. You can check out our Facebook page as well at The Computer Podcast. It's facebook.com/The Computer Podcast. You can email us at thecomputerpodcast@gmail.com, or you can check out our blog that has a lot of details about things we talk about, and you can find that at thecomputerpodcast.com. Well, George, we'll talk to you next week.
See you, Norm. Have a great week.
And we'll talk to you next week here on The Computer Podcast. Interesting programming.